hold on tight. We've got another release of I'm going to call it the FBI files of the Twitter files. We're not yet at the Fauci files, but this is worth listening to, reading. There's going to be some bombs dropped in this part 7 of the FBI files, of the Twitter files. So I'm going to list, this was released by Michael Schellenberger, MD. I'm going to list his name below so you can follow him on Twitter. And here we go. Twitter Files Part 7. The FBI, the Hunter Biden laptop. How the FBI and intelligence community discredited factual information about Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings both after and before the New York Post revealed the contents of his laptop on October 14, 2020. In Twitter Files number 6, we saw the FBI relentlessly seek to exercise influence over Twitter, including over its content, its users, and its data. In Twitter Files number 7, we present evidence pointing to an organized effort by representatives of the intelligence community, IC, aimed at senior executives at news and social media companies to discredit leaked information about Hunter Biden before and after it was published. The story begins in December 2019, when a Delaware computer store owner named John Paul, JP, Mac Isaac contacts the FBI about a laptop that Hunter Biden had left with him. On December 9, 2019, the FBI issues a subpoena for and takes Hunter Biden's laptop. By August 2020, Mac Isaac still had not heard back from the FBI, even though he had discovered evidence of criminal activity. And so he emails Rudy Giuliani, who was under FBI surveillance at the time. In October, Giuliani gives it to the New York Post. Shortly before 7 p.m. ET, on October 13th, Hunter Biden's lawyer, George Mesuri's, emails JP Mac Isaac. Hunter and Mesuri's had just learned from the New York Post that its story about the laptop would be published the next day. At 9:22 p.m. ET, FBI Special Agent Elvis Chan sends 10 documents to Twitter's then head of site integrity, Yoel Roth, through Teleporter, a one-way communications channel from the FBI to Twitter. The next day, October 14th, 2020, the New York Post runs its explosive story revealing the business dealings of President Joe Biden's son, Hunter. Every single fact in it was accurate. And yet, within hours, Twitter and other social media companies censor the New York Post article, preventing it from spreading and, more importantly, undermining its credibility in the minds of many Americans. Why is that? What exactly happened? On December 2nd, Matt Taibbi described the debate inside Twitter over its decision to censor a wholly accurate article. Since then, we have discovered new info that points to an organized effort by the Intel community to influence Twitter and other platforms. First, it's important to understand that Hunter Biden earned tens of millions of dollars in contracts with foreign businesses, including ones linked to China's government, for which Hunter offered no real work. Here's an overview by investigative journalist Peter Schweitzer. And yet, during all of 2020, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies repeatedly primed Yoel Roth to dismiss reports of Hunter Biden's laptop as a Russian, quote, hack and leak operation. This is from a sworn declaration by Roth given in December 2020. They did the same to Facebook, according to CEO Mark Zuckerberg. The FBI basically came to us and was like, hey, You should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in 2016 election. There's about to be some kind of dump similar to that. Now I want to play a recording that Schellenberger has listed here of Mark Zuckerberg speaking to that.
The background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. The background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have...
Okay, so in reference to that, were the FBI warnings of a Russian hack and leak operation relating to Hunter Biden based on any new intel? No, they weren't. Through our investigations, we did not see any similar competing intrusions to what had happened in 2016, admitted FBI agent Elvis Chan in November. Indeed, Twitter executives repeatedly reported very little Russian activity. Example, on September 24th, 2020, Twitter told FBI it had removed 345 largely inactive accounts linked to previous coordinated Russian hacking attempts. They had little reach and low follower accounts. In fact, Twitter debunked false claims by journalists of foreign influence on its platform. We haven't seen any evidence to support that claim. News of foreign-controlled bots. Our review thus far shows a small-scale domestic troll effort. After FBI asks about a WAPO story on alleged foreign influence in a pro-Trump tweet, Twitter's Roth says, "The article makes a lot of insinuations, but we saw no evidence that that was the case here, and in fact a lot of strong evidence pointing in the other direction." It's not the first time that Twitter's Roth has pushed back against the FBI. In January 2020, Roth resisted FBI efforts to get Twitter to share data outside of the normal search warrant process. Pressure had been growing. Quote, "We have seen a sustained, if coordinated, effort by the IC intelligence community to push us to share more information and change our API policies. They are probing and pushing everywhere they can, including by whispering to congressional staff." Time and time again, FBI asks Twitter for evidence of foreign influence, and Twitter responds that they aren't finding anything worth reporting. "We haven't yet identified activity that we typically refer to you, or even flag as interesting in the foreign influence context," Twitter followed up and said. Despite Twitter's pushback, the FBI repeatedly requests information from Twitter that Twitter has already made it clear it will not share outside of normal legal channels. Then, in July 2020, the FBI's Elvis Chan arranges for temporary top-secret security clearances for Twitter executives so that the FBI can share information about threats to the upcoming elections. On August 11, 2020, the FBI's Chan shares information with Twitter's Roth relating to the Russian hacking organization APT28 through the FBI's secure one-way communications channel Teleporter. Recently, Yoel Roth told Kara Swisher that he had been primed to think about the Russian hacking group APT28 before news of the Hunter Biden laptop came out. When it did, Roth said, "It set off every single one of my finely tuned APT28 hack and leap campaign alarm bells." In August 2020, FBI's Chan asked Twitter, "Does anyone there have top secret clearance?" When someone mentions Jim Baker, Chan responds, I don't know how I forgot him. An odd claim, given Chan's job is to monitor Twitter, not to mention that they work together at the FBI. Who is Jim Baker? He's former general counsel of the FBI from 2014 to 2018, and one of the most powerful men in the U.S. intel community. Baker has moved in and out of government for 30 years, serving stints at CNN, Bridgewater, a $140 billion asset management firm, and Brookings. As general counsel of the FBI, Baker played a central role in making the case internally for an investigation of Donald Trump. Baker wasn't the only senior FBI executive involved in the Trump investigation to go to Twitter. Don Burton, the former deputy chief of staff to the FBI head James Comey, who initiated the investigation of Trump, joined Twitter in 2019 as a director of strategy. So just side note, everybody, to make this clear, these are people that had worked for the FBI that are now not working with Twitter. The FBI was working with Twitter, but these people were actually working for Twitter, and they were employees of Twitter now. All right, let's go on. As of 2020, there were so many former FBI employees working at Twitter that they had created their own private Slack channel and a crib sheet to onboard new FBI arrivals. I'm sorry, I'm going off here of my normal, just sticking to the reading. But this is the important bombshell that I really wanted to speak to. There were so many former FBI employees working for Twitter that they opened up their own line of communication for onboarding former FBI agents at Twitter. There were so many that they had to have their own communication channel. That's kind of nuts. I digress, and I will continue. Efforts continued to influence Twitter's Yoel Roth. In September 2020, Roth participated in an Aspen Institute tabletop exercise on a potential hack and dump operation relating to Hunter Biden. The goal was to shape how the media covered it and how social media carried it. The organizer was Vivian Scheller, the former CEO of NPR, former head of news at Twitter, former general manager of New York Times, former chief digital officer of NBC News. Attendees included Meta, Facebook's head of security policy, and the top national security reporters for the New York Times, WAPO, and others. By mid-September 2020, Chan and Roth had set up an encrypted messaging network so employees from FBI and Twitter could communicate. They also agreed to create a, quote, virtual war room for, quote, all the internet industry plus FBI and ODNI, Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Then on September 15th, 2020, the FBI's Laura Dimlow, who heads up the Foreign Influence Task Force, and Elvis Chan request to give a classified briefing for Jim Baker without any other Twitter staff, such as Yoel Roth, present. On October 14th, shortly after New York Post publishes its Hunter Biden laptop story, Roth says, "It isn't clearly violative of our hacked materials policy, nor is it clearly in violation of anything else," but adds, "This feels a lot like a somewhat subtle leak operation." In response to Roth, Baker repeatedly insists that the Hunter Biden materials were either faked, hacked, or both, and a violation of Twitter policy. Baker does so over email and in a Google Doc on October 14th and 15th. And yet, it's inconceivable Baker believed the Hunter Biden emails were either fake or hacked. The New York Post had included a picture of the receipt signed by Hunter Biden, and an FBI subpoena showed that the agency had taken possession of the laptop in December 2019. As for the FBI, it likely would have taken a few hours for it to confirm that the laptop had belonged to Hunter Biden. Indeed, it only took a few days for journalist Peter Schweizer to prove it. And now I'm going to play you a recording of Peter Schweizer talking about how he took time to prove this. All right, here we go.
When the laptop dropped in 2020, I had no idea where it came from. I didn't know if it was real. But what I did was I took the files on the Hunter Biden laptop and I compared it to bodies of information that we knew were absolutely true. So, for example, the Secret Service, again at the request of the U.S. Senate Committee, had released Hunter Biden's travel records. So we were able to take the laptop and say, when he says he's in Dubai, does that correspond with the Secret Service travel records? If he's emailing somebody and saying, I'm in Hong Kong, does that line up? In each and every case, it lined up. Then we compared the laptop to the suspicious activity reports, the SARS reports. When the emails referenced $5 million being wired to Hunter Biden's business, does that correspond with the SARS? And again, it lined up completely. And the laptop really came out at about the same time as the Secret Service travel logs and the wire transfers. So it really would not have been possible for somebody to create thousands of emails simultaneously to demonstrate it. Then the final thing we did, Michael, is we looked at Hunter Biden's laptop emails and we compared them with a collection that we had received from Hunter Biden's business partners, a guy named Bevan Cooney, who's in jail. He shared his Gmail account with us, and we looked at it. The Hunter Biden laptops that have Bevan Cooney correspondence on them, do they actually line up with Bevan Cooney's Gmail account? And again, they did 100%. Now, I was able to do this in Florida with my researchers. The New York Times, the Washington Post, CBS News, ABC News could have done the same thing. But they were not interested in this story. They did not pursue this story. If you had told me that information would come forward that Jimmy Carter's family or Ronald Reagan's family was receiving tens of millions of dollars from Russian businesses that were linked to the KGB, it would have set off alarm bells, rightfully so, to all kinds of news outlets. That's really the equivalent of what we're talking about here. And yet, the media somehow convinced themselves that this was not an important or an interesting story.
By 10 a.m., Twitter execs had bought into a wild hack and dump story. The suggestion from experts, which rings true, is there was a hack that happened separately, and they loaded the hacked materials on the laptop that magically appeared at a repair shop in Delaware. At 3:38 p.m. that same day, October 14th, Baker arranges a phone conversation with Matthew J. Perry in the office of the General Counsel of the FBI. The influence operation persuaded Twitter execs that the Hunter Biden laptop did not come from a whistleblower. One linked to a Hill article based on a WAPO article from October 15th, which falsely suggested that Giuliani's leak of the laptop had something to do with Russia. There is evidence that FBI agents have warned elected officials of foreign influence with the primary goal of leaking the information to the news media. This is a political dirty trick used to create the perception of impropriety. In 2020, the FBI gave a briefing to Senator Grassley and Johnson claiming evidence of, quote, Russian interference into their investigation of Hunter Biden. The briefing angered the senators, who say it was done to discredit their investigation. The unnecessary FBI briefing provided the Democrats and liberal media the vehicle to spread their false narrative that our work advanced Russian disinformation. Notably, then FBI General Counsel Jim Baker was investigated twice in 2017 and 2019 for leaking information to the news media. You're saying he's under criminal investigation? That's why you're not letting him answer? Meadows asked. Yes. In the end, the FBI's influence campaign aimed at executives at news media, Twitter, and other social media companies worked. They censored and discredited the Hunter Biden laptop story. By December 2020, Baker and his colleagues even sent a note of thanks to the FBI for its work. The FBI, I said that there was a big, this is the big one here. Just pay attention. The FBI's influence campaign may have been helped by the fact that it was paying Twitter millions of dollars for its staff time. I'm happy to report we have collected $3,415,323 since October 2019, reports an associate of Jim Baker in early 2021. So that, side note, you guys, the FBI was literally paying Twitter to do this censoring work for them. And where does the FBI get their money? Taxes. They are employed by us. So this is where your taxes went to, people. The FBI censoring small accounts, anybody that went against any kind of narrative that they saw fit on Twitter. That's over $3.5 million of our tax money went to this, instead of investigating real criminals. Okay, and I'll continue. And the pressure from the FBI on social media platforms continues. In August 2022, Twitter execs prepared for a meeting with the FBI whose goal was to convince us to produce on more FBI EDRs. EDRs are an, quote, emergency disclosure request, a warrantless search. In response to the Twitter files revelation of high-level FBI agents at Twitter, Jim Jordan said, I have concerns about whether the government was running a misinformation operation on we the people. Anyone who reads the Twitter files, regardless of their political orientation, should share those concerns. And that is the end, folks. I think that is the most shocking one of them all. Anyhow, I think this information is really important. The mainstream media is not reporting on all of this stuff that's being uncovered at Twitter. And that's why I had to put this information out here, and I will continue to read you guys any Twitter files that come out. And I'm also looking forward to posting some more content, maybe talks. There's a lot of interesting talks going on with the Twitter Spaces, so I'll be sharing that too. But anyways, thanks for your following and your likes and your support, and we'll just keep pushing on and trying to get the truth out there. And thanks, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.